An image and a person are two entirely different things. And sometimes what you think the person is, sometimes what image they portray is not who they really are. Now, we're going to get into this today. Now, I'm going to take you on a walk and let you know that, look, here's the deal. What you see, what an image that somebody projects, right? And look, they could be presenting themselves as a religious person or a pious person or somebody of God. They could be, and we're talking about musical artists today, but look, this goes the same for all kinds of people, right? It could be politicians or musicians or athletes or whatever else, man. And look, I look a lot better. Reality is, I look a lot better in my studio than I look when we get out here in the light. So there's an example right there. There's an example. But look, recently, it's come out that the lead singer of a band called Newsboys, former lead singer Michael Tait, has been accused of some rather alarming behavior, right? And it's alarming because it involves advances. Let's say we have to kind of cover these things up on YouTube. You can't say certain terms or else they'll demonetize the video. But let's just say Michael has made unwanted advances on people, going past the point of unwanted advances and actually touching people inappropriately that did not want to be touched. And also alleged behavior with drugs and all of that. Okay, well, here's the deal. If you're just a normal rock star, that might not be unusual behavior. Certainly, rock stars have been accused of these kinds of things for a long time. But here's the deal. The Newsboys, which was the group that he had formerly been the lead singer of, the Newsboys were a Christian outfit, right? Now, I've known people, being in Nashville, I've known people that were friends with Michael Tait. I knew people that had worked in the Newsboys camp, as they like to say, right, in the business. Oh, I know somebody in that camp, right? But here's the deal. If you're selling Christianity and look, this is not an uncommon thing that people that get into the, Christian industry and are out there on these Christian tours and playing that kind of music, I think the best way to describe it for some is this is a gig. They needed a gig. They got a gig. Hey, I believe in God, right? Hey, I go to church. Hey, I've been to church. And they take the gig. And they can be very successful, right? Michael Tait had been in a band called DC Talk with another guy who's big on the scene, Toby Mac. And DC Talk had been a huge Christian act. And, I didn't know personally Michael Tait. I think I might have met him once in passing through one of my friends, but there's been a long line of potentially people in that business, right, who, basically go out and play for church people, for church crowds and all of those kind of things, and maybe aren't living that kind of lifestyle. I can't think of the name of a guy. There was a guy in the past. Look, Nashville Nashville's known for its country music industry, but it's also a major hub for Christian music. And so these kinds of, these people are all intermingled. Every now and then I would work with some company that was a Christian-based company or whatever, or I'd get hired for something. And I was never the most pious person in the world. I've certainly had my share of foibles and personal growth that I had to go through. But, I wasn't out on the road selling Christianity, right? And here's the other side of the coin, right? The other side of the coin is there may be people that are selling a lifestyle, whether it's country living or drinking or tailgates and Saturday nights and cold beer and give me a beer, give me a cold beer. Help everybody out there has themselves a cold beer and have a great night. That kind of salesmanship. We've all heard that. If you've ever been to a country concert, you've heard that kind of stuff. And that's not always who these people really are in real life. So the reality is this. What you see portrayed on stage, what you see portrayed on concert, what you perceive someone to be, what their image is not always what they really are, right? People, David Lee Roth accused the Clash of the only people who put iced tea in Jack Daniels bottles is the Clash, baby, right? As he hoisted a Jack Daniels bottle at the US Festival, took a giant swig, and I have no doubt that David Lee Roth was inebriated during that performance, because just listen to the performance. It was subpar, not up to the normal levels that band operated at. But you can't chug Jack Daniels every night and last a long time. I can attest to that. I used to go on stage with a red Solo cup filled with whiskey, and it would sit on top of my amp. And that would be something I would nurse through the show. That's talking later years of touring, right? Not when you're first starting out. Nobody starts out like that. But you know what? There's country artists out there that, sell that beer and sell that whiskey and all that, and don't even touch the stuff. I mean, I know Brad Paisley had a song about alcohol. He's not a drinker. He drinks Yoo-Hoo after the show. That's the reality. Here's the thing, man. The bigger you get, the farther up the food chain you get, the farther removed they get from the real people who are buying the tickets, the people that are wanting to see you sing about their lives. And it's no different from the Christian guy who gets exposed for bad behavior as somebody who's faking to be something they're not. Because they're both faking to be something they're not, right? They're both being dishonest, right? And look, people have weaknesses, people have issues. And I'm not condoning Michael Tait or anybody for that matter. What they're doing is wrong, right? But it's important to separate the image that somebody may be portraying, the image somebody may be portraying on stage, and selling to the masses might be completely different than what they actually are, who they actually are. And that is what I'm trying to tell you here, right? Because we often think by listening to someone's songs that we know them. A lot of people listen to an artist's songs, listen to what they sing about. Maybe don't even realize that some of those words weren't even written by them, right? Because they're singing things that touch you, right? Singing things that reach you and speak of your lives. How many times have you heard a song and you thought, man, it's like they put my life on paper, like the song, strumming my pain with his fingers, that whole thing, man. So many people are touched by a single song, right? But maybe that's just a song. Maybe it's all just a great illusion. Maybe it's all just a great act, right? And the reality is everybody has great weaknesses. And those that have to try to be held to a higher standard because they're playing for an audience that expects a higher standard and expects you not to be addicted to drugs and expects you to praise God and have all the answers in life. Maybe that's the person that's really living a fallen life, right? And maybe some of those rock stars who every night are out there singing about living on the edge and I'm riding the night train, never to return. But they've returned long past. They came home and cleaned themselves up. So they're out there singing about being on the night train and never to return, when in reality, they already have returned. They've put the night train down and they're now going out there and collecting a paycheck, selling that memory of a life past that they've left behind, right? They've left behind all of that. Because here's the other thing. You can't live that lifestyle of excess. You can't live that lifestyle forever. It will catch up to you. And if it doesn't put you 6 feet underground, it'll leave you incapacitated and unable to go out there and even do your act, right? And even if you live a clean life and you do all the right things and get all the right exercise and all that, you still can be taken out just like that. So when you see an image, when you see someone who's up there and you think you know who they are because of what they portray when the cameras are on, what they portray when they're singing a song, or what they portray when they're up on stage, or what they portray through their instrument, you don't really know the person. You don't really know what they're going through. And oftentimes, what they're portraying is not reality. It's not really who they are. They're portraying a lie. Because here's the deal. It's very hard to be perfect. No one truly is, right? So if you're trying to lead a godly life and do all the right things and be perfect, that is an incredibly hard thing to do. And if you're trying to be the rock star and lead the rock star life, party all the time and, have women and substances and all of that stuff. Well, guess what? That's also an incredibly hard thing to do, because here's the real reality. The real reality is that life is hard. Life is never easy, right? And no matter what path you choose in life, no matter what path you're on, you're going to find a way to fail. You're always going to fail at some point. And if people are looking up to you, at some point you're going to let them down. Whether it's because of your actions or inactions or lack of ability to perform as you age, and you're no longer able to go out there and deliver the same level of performance that you did when you were young. That is the reality, right? And I know I say that a lot. I know I say that's like the catchphrase of the channel. The reality is, but man, if you think about that yin and yang of life and the duality, and I know JC, who comments on the channel a lot, talks about that. The duality of life. We are both, it's like in the movie Apocalypse Now. There are two of you, one that loves and one that kills. We are both sides, right? We are all good and evil, right? But what you have to do is you try to let the good win in life, right? You try to do the right things. You try to be a good person. And I know there's some people out there in the world that they'll never do that, right? There's some people that they're just not wired to be good. Maybe it's from how they were raised or whatever, man. I don't know. But the reality is this, man. If you've got some control over it, right? Whether you're teetering on the edge of a failure or riding the wave of success, at some point, everybody's got to get off of that path that's going to lead them to destruction and find the path of righteousness that will save their soul. So when you hear of a Christian artist acting in a non-Christian way, well, they're just being human. They're just being human, and you need to pray for them just like you'd pray for anybody else. The same thing goes for that rock star who's selling a lifestyle that they've long since given up, and maybe not seeing the negativity of that, not seeing that they're just fueling other people's appetite for destruction. Think about that. What are you selling? The albums have already been out there. The merch, people buy at shows. They go to shows, they drink, they party. They have to get there somehow. Think about that, man. Think about the duality and the similarities between both sides of the coin. Those that pretend to be on the good path and are not, and those that pretend to be on the path of destruction and really are not. They're really just on the path of monetization. That, my friends, is the reality of that.